And Mr. Lobach? Yes. If you could lead us in the pledge, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Moak, roll call, please.
Here.
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 Here. All right, well, wonderful. Tonight we have Mark Van Clay back to work with us a bit more to advance our professional development. And Melissa, I will allow you to introduce professional development.
All righty. Well, as the board had requested, we're thrilled to have you back, although Mark pointed out he's never been here in winter. So welcome to winter in Glen Ellyn. But Mark is going to spend a little bit more time on strategic charge, which is what the board requested, and then do a detailed walk through the CEC strategic plan process, or a walk through the...
Maybe a brief walk. It depends on how far we get with the system assessment, with the charge. Part of the work of the charge tonight will be you interacting in the charge process around the notion, I killed it, around the notion of a strategic plan. So it may be that we weave the strategic plan process into some of this as we go. We'll see how that shakes out. I can always do an addendum if we have some time. What I want to do is get deeper into the strategic charge. And Nancy was telling me before the meeting that you've been playing around with it a little bit since you last saw me, so I'm pleased to hear that. So let me give you a little background on it, and the background's kind of embedded into this handout. If you flip the handout over, the first page, the page that's on the back end of the cover, is called a 5-step collaborative decision-making cycle. And this actually came out of Perry Sidwell's and my first book 10 years ago, School Board Field Book Leading with Vision. And we did a number of things in here. This predates the strategic charge, but it lays out this 5-step collaborative decision-making process. And the idea here was, how do the strategic, tactical, and operational roles interact with each other? How do decisions get made that include all of them in a responsible way? And so you're kind of, the board, the strategic level, is kind of the bookends of this process. You lay out a strategic charge, and in those days, strategic charge wasn't an actual process like it is now. It was a notion where you would give parameters to administration and say, we're thinking about wanting to pursue this. Go out and give us a plan that addresses it. And that would be step 2 of this. And step 3 would be, once the administration puts a plan together, they kind of test run it with their administrators and their teachers. So they get tactical and operational input on it, because what they're trying to do, and this term also was in this book, they're trying to avoid the cascading effect. Remember the cascading effect? Okay. And Guillermo, we're using terms here that you don't know yet, but we'll catch you up in time. Bear with us, please. Then the plan would go back, which is step 4 here, to administration. They would have the input of their administrators and their teachers, and they'd come back and they'd refine the plan, but still meeting the conditions or the parameters that the board set in step 1, and they bring it back to the board, and the board essentially has 3 choices. They can say, fine, you met our charge, we'll approve it. They can say, you didn't meet our charge, so go back and revise it. Or they can say, you're over in Mars and we gave you a Venus charge, you need to start all over again. So the second, third options are kind of variants of the same theme. You're basically saying, we set some parameters and some conditions for you and you didn't meet them, so you got to go back and redo it and get it right. What this does is it basically says the board's going to approve things that address its parameters. So the board doesn't actually have to get into the planning phase, but it does have to get into the set the conditions for the plan phase. So out of this general notion of how to do collaborative decision making, we came up with charges. So if you flip the page and you see this blue here, now we're talking about a strategic charge in the process manner in which I've been talking to you about it in the summer. And I want to kind of lay it out in terms of two levels of it. One is a formal charge, and that'll be this. And we're going to go through and build one of these tonight. I want you to go through the process of a formal charge because it's how you think and how you exchange ideas with each other that makes this work or not work. But the informal charge is where you don't have to go through a process like this that's so prescriptive. You can simply, in a general kind of sense, act in the manner of that 5-step decision-making process and say, Melissa, we'd like you to check out this kind of thing, and we'd like you to give us a charge that accounts for this and this and this, and you're doing it verbally. And it's pretty clear and it's pretty simple, and Melissa knows what to do, and her task is to come back with something that fits the parameters of your charge. So what I don't want to leave you with is the idea that you can only do a strategic charge when it's formal. I want to give you the option of doing it formally or informally. And the more complicated and large scale your issue, the more you would gravitate more toward a formal end than an informal end, because you can document your path for how you're setting your conditions. So something, for example, like a referendum, which is a really big deal, you might want to formally go through something like this because you might want to be on the record for how you even came to the conclusion that you want to craft a referendum approach. On the other hand, you may be saying to Melissa, we've got a policy update. We want to update, chapter 2 of the policy book. And what we want you to do is sit down with another board member and work out whatever language changes you two think are appropriate and bring the language changes to us. Don't bring us things that you're not recommending get changed. So you might take a chapter of policies that has 25 policies in it, and you may end up talking about 4 of them. And if you do that every semester and you've got 7 chapters in your policy book over the course of 3.5 years, you're on a continual policy rotation schedule. You don't need a formal charge to do that, but simply laying out that kind of process and proposing that as a way for Melissa to continually update your policy would be the equivalent of an informal strategic charge. Kind of see how that works? So I kind of laid out here the fact that there's a formal and an informal. I kind of laid out, and I think you've heard this before, some general conditions about using this process. You have to be a team of 8 to make this work. This process takes more time up front, but it should take less time on the back end. It's like buying insurance. You're going to pay for it forward or you're going to pay for it behind, but you're going to pay for it one way or the other. You tend to pay less up front, but you have to put in the time up front to make it happen. This isn't so much about the decision. In fact, it isn't at all about the decisions you need to make. It's about how you make decisions. So you can go to the public, regardless of what you end up deciding, and say, we have a very prescriptive way of going about making decisions. We follow some self-imposed guidelines to make sure that the decisions are reasonable, are representative, account for the needs of everybody in the organization, and we're happy to share with you what our process is. Here it is. And finally, this process helps you address the cascading effect, because it kind of builds the cascading effect into it by getting tactical and operational feedback before a decision is made. So, given that, if you flip the page, you get this, which is here. This is a formal charge document, which in a minute or two we're going to start working with. If you flip that over, I want to give you the informal charge, and these are the steps for an informal charge. This is not something you'd have to write down. This is just a thought process you'd use if you want to, without writing anything down, say to Melissa, this is how we'd like you to attack the next issue that's come up. And this is remarkably like the 5-step decision-making process. It's just kind of retranslated into charge language, if you will. If you flip the page over again, you've got 2 pages here. And what I wanted to do was, between the strategic and tactical roles, give you verbs that, and the verbs are bold, give you verbs that fit strategic kinds of actions versus verbs that fit tactical kinds of actions. And I wanted to lay them next to each other so you can see how a particular strategic verb might lead to a particular tactical verb response. And I don't want to or need to go through each one of these. I think they're fairly self-explanatory. But I thought it might be helpful to give you some examples of how strategic goes to tactical, how you're actually saying through a formal or informal charge, Melissa, here's what we want you to come back to us with. And here's our part in that process of getting something going, and here's your part in that process of responding to what we're asking you to pursue. So there's a bunch of examples here. The one on the first, the bottom one on the first page and the top one on the second page are the same verb. Evaluate strategic means a different evaluate than tactical, and I tried to lay out an example there. Same with the verb govern. Govern strategic has a different meaning than govern tactical. Otherwise, there are different verbs for each one, going back and forth. So this is kind of I wanted to make a quick and easy reference set for you around strategic charges and the thinking behind it. Make sense? Okay. And Melissa, if you would find it helpful to have this, well, you've got it as an electronic because I sent it to you, so do what you will with it. So Melissa and I, when Melissa asked me to come in tonight, she said, can we use a real life example to have them work through what doing a formal charge might actually look like? She said, can we do strategic plan with this? And I said, well, they wouldn't actually make a decision on a strategic plan with this, but what they would do with this is they would make decisions on how they should pursue the investigation of a strategic plan. Because it's going to be there's going to be a decision once they go through a process to either do one or not do one, and do one with someone in particular or not do one with someone in particular. But whomever you might talk to about a strategic plan, it would be nice if through this process you had some idea already of what you're collectively looking for. Rather than just going to people like me or other people who do this stuff and say, well, what do you think, Mark? What should we do? This might be a way for you to identify for Mark and others what you'd like to get out of this process. So how about if we pose this as, let's build together a strategic charge tonight around the qualities or the expectations you have around what you'd like to see from a strategic plan process. Fair enough? Okay, so in a charge, it's always going to be assigned to the superintendent. The superintendent's the lead, and as the lead, the superintendent has the ability and the authority to give herself a committee to pursue whatever the board is asking her to pursue. So whatever this charge turns out to be, you'll assign it to your CEO, and she has the ability as the lead to put a group around her who might actually pursue this either with her or on her behalf and at her direction. And her direction will incorporate whatever direction you give through your charge tonight. Okay? At some point, you will, when we build this, at some point you will be done building it, and that will be the moment at which you'll approve a charge. And by approving a charge, you're basically saying, we're giving this formal document to Melissa, and we're asking her to give us a plan or a process that follows the conditions in this document. And the school year would be assigned, in this case, 2019-2020. And if you want to be more specific and put a month down there, you can do that too. But the general notion here is this simply identifies who's going to get your charge and when you activated the charge in the year you're working the charge in. So the first box says why, because each of these boxes represent questions. And there's 2 why questions in the first box on the left. One's the charge's purpose and one's the charge's non-purpose. The charge's purpose is the reason you want to do this. So if you want to give Melissa a charge around your expectations for a strategic planning process, what you'd like to see whoever's going to deliver one, you're trying to define how you want that experience to be for you. So your purpose is to give parameters or conditions to Melissa in her search for strategic planning groups or parties who can basically deliver on your expectations. And your expectations at this stage, because you don't know what the plan is going to be, are around the experience of the plan. So let me give you one example of what I'm talking about. Some boards want someone to come in and write the plan for them. Do all the research, do all the investigating, do all the interviews, run all the focus groups, give us something that we can vote on and be done with. And we want it over a fairly quick period of time. So you might be saying to some kind of group, give us a strategic plan. It's the end of November. We'd like one by the middle of February. You got 2.5 months to pull this thing off. Your non-purpose is going to be what your charge is not addressing or accomplishing. In other words, it's the limits of the charge. So if that was the charge, your non-purpose would be, but we're not prescribing what the outcome is supposed to be. We want you to develop the outcome. So this isn't these are conditions for how you're going to do this work, but it's not conditions on what kind of outcome you're supposed to produce. Here's another example. You might say the charge's purpose is, we want a lot of involvement from the community and from the staff. We don't just want this to be our decision as a 7-member group or an 8-member group if it's a team of 8 with Melissa. We want more representation in that. So we want this to be a bigger spread than just us. So we don't want somebody who's just going to go around and do focus groups and run a report. We want some level of involvement in the building of this thing. Now, at this stage, you don't know what that's going to be or what that's going to look like, but what you're saying is we want that level of interaction. We don't just want this to be a hire out and produce. We want to have some people involved in this process. But your non-purpose might be, but again, we're not predetermining the outcome. We just want a lot of involvement in however it's built.
What do you mean when you say predetermining the outcome? Like, nobody can do that, right?
Nobody can do that right now. No.
You could if you want.
But some boards, but I don't think this would even occur to you, but believe me, I've seen it happen. Some boards have said, we want you to come in and do our strategic plan, and this is what we wanted to say.
Oh.
You know, and generally when CEC gets a request like that, we say, well, you don't need us. You don't waste your money on hiring us or anybody else. Just write it yourself, because you don't really want this to be developed. You already know what you want. Just write it. And your superintendent can get samples of what a plan looks like, so you can have a format for it. Just do it yourself. We ask people to consider what the non-purpose is because sometimes the assumption is that as soon as we state some expectations up here, there's other expectations that are just understood. Well, they're not understood. I mean, they may be understood to you, and in your head they make all sorts of sense, But any third party who's going to interact or interface with this only know what you're telling them. They don't know what you're thinking that you don't tell them. So your non-purpose kind of puts a fence around what your expectations are, whatever they may be. You can build a big fence, you can build a small fence. The size of the fence doesn't matter, but the notion of a fence does. Because whoever's going to respond to your charge isn't going to look beyond the borders of the fence. So it's up to you to put the fence up, and you can make it as big as you want, but you've got to build the fence. And the fence is your conditions, your expectations, the things that you want to see come out of this process. After all, you're investing time and money in this. You're very likely going to pay somebody to do this. So if you're going to have all that kind of resource investment into a process like this, there's certain expectations that you want to see fulfilled. We want to get that into the charge. So let's do a little building in this box. You want a strategic plan. You want to refresh or renew or redo the plan you already have. There are some things about your plan that you like. There are some things about your plan that you don't like. Those things might be some of the purposes of your charge. Or they might be, later on, some of the conditions or restrictions or added parameters that you want to add. So why don't we think right now? Why don't you pair up, let's see, 2, Melissa, talk to yourself for 2 minutes. Think about some possible purpose statements and non-purpose statements that you'd like to see put into this formal charge. What are your expectations for what this process is going to look like?
Manageable in size and scope, smart goals and strategic.
And Melissa, if you want to do this on your own, please do.
I am.
From the goals, include student, staff, parents, community, and related organizations.
Yeah, I know.
Foundation.
What I would want. Well, I agree with you. Is that something you want to tell them? Or is that kind of a,
Well, yeah, I think that would be fair to say the expectations are that the process would.
Well, wouldn't it be fair? I think it would be fair to, as opposed to that, to address whether or not, or give us a recommendation as to whether or not specifications strategic plan should be rolled into this. And that would let her make a decision and then, give a recommendation as to that.
As opposed to just.
As opposed to directing her to specifically do that.
Well, this seems less direct. This seems less directing because it's addressing principles.
No, I understand. I understand what you're saying.
Then let her decide.
I don't know.
It's good.
I'm
First
actually
time
not
I've done this.
debating whether or not that's a good idea.
It's how to say it.
And where to be, whether that should be part of a purpose or not.
Well, how about something like a time frame?
Oh, I think that definitely makes sense.
3-year horizon. And then
Oh, you mean a time frame for
a time frame for the plan would go for 3 years, not 5 years.
I think she should be. Probably
I think a
have
time frame.
recommendation as to that. Yeah.
Or a recommendation for a time. Okay. And then something that speaks to it being publicly accessible, it being readable, understandable, and relatively brief. Yeah, yeah.
Can you,
Yeah.
wrap up whatever your thought is and let's share some details. And I'll scribe. Who wants to start? Who's got some things to share?
Melissa's partner actually had.
My
She
partner
had a
and I
great
had great
partner.
things to say.
The frog.
Her and the frog.
Oh, yeah,
I have a few things. All right. That it's manageable in size and scope. That it includes SMART goals at a strategic level. That the board monitoring plan that will cascade from those goals. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going too fast. Yeah. SMART goals. A board monitoring plan that cascades from those goals.
Okay.
Representation of student, staff, parents, community, and related organizations.
Community organizations?
Community and related organizations.
Okay, got it.
Includes an.
And you want them represented in the process? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Includes lenses of equity, social emotional learning, FEL.
Okay.
In determining the outcomes, yeah.
And universal design. Hey, you want me to say? I only got one more. And then a review of the current plan.
Okay.
To see if there's anything to carry over. It expands. See, it goes bigger. We're fine.
Okay. Melissa.
I have broader engagement beyond the board and superintendent.
Okay, can I say that that's the same as this?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Realistic in scope within the realities of our staffing and financial resources.
Okay, within resources?
Yeah. Which I see that as like with number.
Yeah, that's actually going to be down here. Yeah. But there's going to be a number of these things that can go in other places. But let's just kind of capture what people are thinking here.
Clarity in terms of priorities and monitoring.
Okay.
And I had put that we would roll our, I don't want a standalone special ed strategic plan. So if that rises to the top in the process as a priority, then I want it to fall under the main strategic plan. Yeah, I don't.
Does that get it? Special ed embedded in plan? Okay.
Which is, universal design is how I.
Okay, that's what you meant by universal design?
It's,
okay.
It's tangentially related.
Same thing? Why don't I do this then? Why don't I, if it's all right with both of you, whoops. Why don't I take this and just make that a parenthetical addition?
I think it'd be the other way around.
Okay.
Universal design can be parenthetical.
Okay.
Right? Is that what you mean? Yeah.
Okay, got it. Tom and Jason.
We had a few this. One of the last things that we were starting to talk about was a usable plan, where it's something that the board can refer to, look to it of would make a decision as to kind of a guiding feasible plan.
Okay, okay, got it. Does that say it?
Probably.
Okay.
The only other one that we had here that wasn't captured by these two incredibly insightful teams here is some sort of time horizon. 3 year,
Oh,
5 years.
okay.
I
thought that was in the first one, but
you thought that was in the size and scope?
Okay, so you want a multi-year plan?
Yes.
Okay.
Are you saying that's something the board should define, or that the strategic process should define?
I guess.
I think we have a 1 year strategic plan.
Yeah, generally speaking, when people ask for what you just said, they want something that's going to give the board continuity over time and direction over time. So this is, and in your work, that's multiple years. So to some degree or another, you're looking for a multiple-year plan. So if that's one of your conditions, one of the things you'll say to people who, you're interviewing for carrying out this plan is, what's your notion of a plan length? We're looking for a multiple-year plan. What are you proposing to us?
Well, and I guess along those lines, I'm wondering if it's weird that our academic strategic goals would have the same time horizon as our facilities goals. That seems sort of like you might have time horizons that are differ depending on the strategic goal itself versus one for the overall plan.
I think, there's a reality with facilities that we have a 10-year health and life safety plan, and typically we can have a more general statement. For instance, if we're going to parcel out a 3-year strategic plan, then what pieces of the 10-year life safety can we implement in the next 3 years?
Right.
Because that's what keeps it realistic in scope and cost.
Yep.
So, and I think having a time frame helps you decide, is the work realistic to accomplish in that time frame?
Yep.
But we should have all of our priorities identified in this document so that we're not like, okay, here's our priorities, but then we have another document that has our other. So even for facilities, I would say we have to define it here.
Typically what happens in most plans is that maybe one of the goals, because generally, at least the plans that we would propose if we're the ones who were to do this, would be there's a resources goal. So that's finances, facilities, technology. Generally embedded into that is the 10-year life safety plan, because that's legally required in Illinois. So it becomes one of the foundational things that's a given in terms of what are the resource priorities under this plan going to be, given that there's a 10-year life safety requirement that's going to interface with the length of time of this plan. And no matter who you go to for a plan, they would have to incorporate that into it. So that's not an unusual thing. Julie, Guillermo, anything to add? Or did they cover everything?
I think we only had one that was about
okay.
Measure the data relevant.
Oh yeah, because I was trying to help Guillermo get a little bit caught up, and we were talking about how you had said in our current long range plan, all that data is good data, it's just not all for us.
Yes.
So it needs to be relevant to the board work.
Okay.
And then,
no, I think that's.
And then this, I hadn't thought of this before, but after Glenn talked about lenses, I would just add like a trauma lens. And if we're thinking about this diversity, equity, and inclusion, I think equity and inclusion are on there with a special thing. I would just add diversity.
Oh, okay.
Can I ask a quick question, Mark?
Yes.
Should the process get us to those things?
I'm going to go through this list in a minute and kind of talk about where things go, because none of these are purpose statements. But many of these can go down here, depending on where you want to put them. And a few of these would be products of the process.
Right.
And we can talk about that because that line gets a little thin, and so it would.
Our conversation was much higher level. I didn't realize we were going to go into this detail on here.
Right.
Yeah, but it's okay. It's okay because we may not go into this detail here, but I'm giving you an experience of trying to process the process, and we can play now with what you've given us. Let's look at this part down here and see if any of these things fit into expectations that you would have or required assets is something about how much resources can you put into this process. So you might have a dollar limit as to how much you want to spend on a plan, no matter what it is. That might be a required asset. You might say, we have a budget. Our budget is $30,000. We can look at anything under that, or to it. We would have to be convinced to look over that. So, and I'm pulling a number out of my head. I'm not suggesting a number to you, but you might put a number there around a cost, because cost is not unlimited for you. So you're going to state a cost down here. A lot of what we have up here might be expectations. So for example, if you want manageable in size and scope, if you want SMART goals, those things are most likely going to be expectations.
Mark, can I just
Sure,
ask
sure,
one
please.
All of the bulleted items that you have in the Y cell, are they properly in that cell, or would they be in the plan, product, policy, structure, process, or the second cell, where you have the what?
Well, let me work backwards and answer the what result box first.
Yeah, please.
The what result box is easy because what you've got there is a plan, a product, a policy, a structure, a process, or a procedure to be developed. From that choice, what are we talking about here?
Long-range plan.
You want a plan as an outcome.
Yes.
But you're not giving Melissa a charge on a plan. You're giving her a charge on a process for a plan.
Okay.
So what I would type in here is, and if you want to, that says it pretty clear and pretty simply. This is the result you're expecting to come out with. You're expecting to define for Melissa to come back with some organization that's going to give you a process for building a plan that meets your expectations and your criteria and your charge. I would argue that given all of these here, I think this was a great way to kind of get to these kinds of things. You could literally take this whole thing.
That makes more sense.
And put it here.
Because it doesn't seem to answer the why question, but it does answer the parameter
Whoops.
question.
Undo that one.
That's one of the great buttons ever created, undo.
Yeah, no kidding. It's my favorite. So let's talk about what you're actually trying to do here. What you're your result is a process for a strategic plan that you can actually hire somebody to carry out this process. Your charge is about defining your expectations for a strategic plan's process. Don't you think? I mean, that's kind of what we've been circling around the whole time. What I hear you saying is, we want to define Is that fair? Is that what you're trying to do? Now argue with me, because if it's not, I'll change it.
Well, Mark, here's what I'd like to ask.
Sure.
So in that first box, you asked the why question, the reason for the charge. Why is it needed or necessary? So I'm I'm thinking about a why, a response to the why. And why could be the current long-range plan is sunsetting. And the board wants to be more deliberative and thoughtful in directing the next plan. We don't want it to be random. We don't want it to be piecemeal. Why do it? Because change has occurred in the district that compels us to engage important educational issues and facility issues or something of that sort. I can't be wrong. I'm throwing this out, but that's
more like what Guillermo and I talked about. We were much higher level than like listing all the action people.
he's going to be a fantastic board member. Strategic, I'm telling you. Way to go, Guillermo.
See, you don't miss me anymore.
So, does Bob? I'm trying to roughly describe what I think your intention is. Am I getting it there?
Yeah, and I'm willing to build with my colleagues on that why. I did that quick down and dirty, but I mean something that would be compelling us to do this now.
Yep.
Yeah, some of what I said was that we've grown out of some of it. Some of it's no longer relevant.
We've met maybe some of those goals.
Time to like look forward from now. Now this is where we are. We're not here. Now we're here. Now we need to go.
We also have a new superintendent starting with
We need clarity of direction.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why don't we say this then?
Yeah, I mean that's a why.
I would say that we also need a plan that the board can use to drive its governance activities.
Okay.
that already got moved.
Yeah, it was up there, yeah.
But it could go back.
Say it again, Jessica. To drive board.
Drive board governance activities.
Okay.
Or decisions. Or governance period.
Yeah, okay. Does that work? I mean, it's a little clumsy, but you could wordsmith that to where you want it. And what would your non-purpose be? Where are you not trying to go with this?
A prescribed plan.
We're not. Right, go ahead.
Yeah.
You're
not trying to predefine the plan.
We're not trying to predefine the plan or prescribe the outcome.
Okay. Sorry about the font. What do I have here?
Would you like it when it just changes then?
So let's go down to here and see if there's anything that isn't even an expectation. Now, it might be, but let's just check. Manageable in size and scope, that seems fair. And in fact, that might be one of your required assets. You may want to get a little more specific here. What just happened here?
Control V.
Gosh.
Hit that undo button again, Mark.
Yeah, no kidding. You're seeing my limitations as a scribe here. SMART goals is certainly an expectation. Relevant data to the board kind of goes along with SMART goals because SMART goals is going to define what your relevant data would look like. I would caution you that in a strategic plan, the data isn't just relevant to you.
Right.
It's relevant to the organization at all of its levels. And there's different data at different levels. In other words, you've got to direct the right data to the right levels because each level has different jobs. And so they need data for different, they may look at the same data, but they need it laid out differently given their work. So the data you're going to look at to do your jobs is going to look different from the data that teachers look at to do their jobs, even if it comes from the same data set. Even if you're all looking at map data, you're going to look at it differently because you have different needs for it. So time horizon, if you want a multi-year plan, that might be a restriction. In other words, you want to make sure that you're not getting something that's a one-off. You want something that has some scope to it. Or you could leave it as a condition, or you could leave it as an expectation. I think at this point, it's a back and forth thing in terms of where you'd put it. I think you want it in here. It's just a matter of where you want to put it. So if you're happy with it here, leave it there. If you'd rather have it up here, leave it up here. Students, staff, parents, community, and related orgs represented in the process, that's a clear expectation. There's certain kinds of lenses that you're laying out here. Depending on the plan and depending on the people you talk to, either this is something that you can prescribe up front, or this is something that becomes part of the consideration through the process. The more you expand, the more you're into this, the less specific, right, at this stage you can be about things like this.
Right.
Now, I'm here to tell you that with all the plans that I do and CEC does, these are common themes, particularly in more recent plans and in districts like yours that are striving, higher striving districts. So I would really doubt that this wouldn't come up to the fore through the process. But the more you want this, the less space you have to require this. If you're asking that the review of the current plan be built into the process, that's a reasonable expectation. Within resources, you'd want to define what those resources are, but it would go here. Or a restriction would be that you can't go outside of resources. It would depend on where you put that. Clarity and priorities in monitoring.
You can take that off. I think we added it into box 1 now.
Okay.
It's in the Y state.
Okay. Usable plan to guide the board.
It's in 1.
That's
It was in 1 too.
okay. And so you've got a fairly limited but specific field of expectations here. What you would do with the rest of this is you'd say to Melissa, we want you to go out and find groups that will give us strategic plans proposals, but in your interface with them, you need to find out up front before you bring them to us whether they're okay with the conditions and the expectations that we have. You can tell them why we're doing this, what our purpose is. You can tell them what our expectations are. You can tell them what our restrictions are and our required assets. And you probably want to talk about some kind of money cap of some kind. You may not know that money cap until you go out and price the market. So it would be up to you to say to Melissa, go out and price the market before we can give you a money cap because we don't know what the market will bear right now. Or you can just give her a money cap and hope she can find somebody who can fit within it. I mean, that's kind of your call one way or the other. But what you'd essentially be saying to Melissa is, go out and do this search for us. And does the board, and Melissa would say, well, I'm going to have somebody help me with this. Or she's going to say, I don't need anybody to help me with this. So what would you say, Melissa? Do you want people to help you with this, or can you do it by yourself?
Do I want help with the point?
Do you want help with addressing?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Do you then board, then what you would do is you would say to the board, this is the kind of help I'm looking for. And once the board hears the kind of help she's looking for, the board might say, well, make sure you have somebody representing this group on your help group, depending on what help group you're looking at. So this would be a discussion that would go back and forth as a team of 8 between the board and Melissa, where Melissa's trying to describe how she's going to use a group to help her meet your charge, answer your why question, address your purpose. And through that discussion, the board might say, well, is there another area of representation here that would make your team even stronger? And can we can we say in here that we'd like to have that included as well? And you'd pretty much come to agreement on that, and then you'd log it into this form. Okay? What you'd want to say to Melissa is, we'd like you to bring us proposals by this date. And so there's a time frame attached to bringing something to you. And what Melissa will say is, I mean, if you say, okay, bring us this, by the 10th of December, Melissa might say, well, that'll be kind of tough because I've got to get my group together, and we've got to figure out a process for how to put this together. So again, this might be a discussion back and forth in terms of how she's going to use her group to do the search. But what you want to embed in the charge is a drop dead date for getting proposals back to you that meet your charge. And kind of on the side, one of the things you're expecting as a board is, if you're going to use a group to do this, how are you going to get tactical and operational input? So that the process itself has some tactical and operational feedback attached to it. Because with anything you give her now, you want to get that tactical and operational reaction to whatever it is that Melissa's going to develop before she brings it back to you, so that you know, based on what she's bringing back to you, that it's not going to cause an undue cascading effect burden on either of those levels. So your common expectation in this process is, Melissa, always do a check before you come back to us to ensure that we're not creating a cascading effect that's going to cause a problem down the road. We don't want to decide on something, approve it, and then have a bunch of tacticians and operationalists come back at us and say, oh, you're ruining us, you're causing all these problems. Check this out before we even get to that point. So that's kind of embedded in, you can embed it either here, or you can embed that in your expectations, or you can embed that, probably those two places are the two places that you might want to look at the soonest. But the idea is that's a common expectation no matter what your charge. You're always going to ask her to do that.
So we have like 3 minutes. Should we talk CEC?
Do you have what?
We have like 3 minutes. So.
Okay, I'm close to getting this wrapped up because I'm on your clock too. The leads action plan and budget due date. What you'd basically be saying is if there's a budget parameter, when Melissa comes back with her proposal, she's coming back with costs. So that you don't have to like something and then wonder how much it's going to cost. So that's built into here. If this is a charge that's going to require periodic updates to the board as to how the process is going, you would put some dates in here so that there's an expectation on the part of the board that if we can't have an answer by this date, we'll have an update by this date so that you can give us status. And the outcome due date is when this whole process is supposed to be completed and something's coming to the board for an approval consideration, what would that date be? It doesn't mean that you can't, as you're doing this work, revise these dates in the charge. But it does mean that going into it, as you set this thing up right out of the box, you're putting some dates in here so that there's already a timeline embedded in the process. Okay, in the 2 minutes that I have left, this is really a quick and dirty walkthrough in terms of how to use the form. I don't think, I'm not advising that you use the form all the time, but once in a while when there's a big thing going, this is a very helpful way to document a process and how you want the process to turn out so that the outcome is a natural development of a process that you've stated up front and that you can show to the public, and that it's very clear what you're looking for and what your conditions and expectations are. Any comments or questions in the 1 minute that's left? Did this give you what you were looking for?
He did tell you. Yes. No, that answers my questions.
Okay.
What I could do is take back the information that I've already been working on, because we're a few steps ahead of this at this point, and answer some of these questions for the board before they have to make a decision.
And would it be helpful to you if I just sent you this so that
Sure.
you know you have record of the work that you did tonight.
Absolutely.
Any other questions or comments on this? In terms of CEC and the strategic plan process itself, you will talk to CEC as part of the process. We'll see where that goes.
Absolutely.
Mark, thank you.
Okay. Thank you for your time.
See you again.
Thank you for your attention.
And you did well here in the cold. You did just fine.
I shivered my way through it, and I appreciate your forbearance. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mark.
It's great to see you again.
Nice seeing you.
Okay. We will now move to. Oh, I actually thought he was done at 7.
That's okay. Well, he did. Yeah. I just ran out of time.
I'm assuming it's on. You need a sound check?
We're good?
We're just waiting a couple minutes so that we start at 7. Go ahead. Anyone need to step away from the table? Now's the time. Just don't talk in the restaurant.
Nancy's motioning for you.
Okay, now Nancy's saying we're good. All right, we're going to open up the public hearing on the district e-learning plan. It is now 7 o'clock. And we will open up the hearing. During the 2018-19 school year, District 41 implemented e-learning to make up 3 emergency days. Overall, the feedback reported by the schools was positive from staff, student, and parents. On July 1st, 2019, the state of Illinois amended the school code to allow the continuance of using e-learning days related to emergency days with an approach to engage students and maintain continuity of teaching and learning on days that would have otherwise been lost to emergency school closures. Before adoption, the school board is required to hold a public hearing for initial approval of the district e-learning program. The board will be taking action later in the meeting on the plan. A legal notice for this public hearing was published in Glen Ellyn Suburban Life on November 8, 2019, and to date, no public input has been received. Members of the public who wish to address the board should complete the blue public hearing comment form and hand it to the board's secretary. She will call your name when it is your turn to speak. I would like to remind members of the audience that speakers should identify themselves and limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. In order to maintain the consistency of public participation, I will inform the speaker when there is 30 seconds remaining and stop the speaker at exactly 3 minutes. Any information left unfinished can be handed to the board recording secretary. Is there anyone present who wishes? No, there is not. Then, may I have a motion to adjourn the public hearing? Motion. Second? All in favor, say aye. Aye. The public hearing is now closed. So we move to a very important, auspicious, and enjoyable moment on the agenda, and that is the introduction of our new board member and his affirmation of the oath of office. During the November 18th closed session portion of a special meeting, the board interviewed applicants to fill the vacancy made by the resignation of Mrs. D'Ambrosio. Also at the meeting, the board took action appointing Mr. Guillermo Guzman to that vacancy. Mr. Guzman met with staff last week and submitted his letter of acceptance and commitment to the oath of office. I would now ask Mr. Guzman to stand with me and to affirm your board oath.
I, Guillermo Guzman, do solemnly affirm that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of member of the Board of Education of Glen Ellyn, District 41, in accordance with the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Illinois, and the laws of the State of Illinois to the best of my ability. I further affirm that I should respect taxpayer interests by serving as a faithful protector of the school district assets. I should encourage and respect the free expression of opinion of my fellow board members and others who seek a hearing before the board while respecting the privacy of students and employees. I should recognize that a board member has no legal authority as an individual and that decisions can be made only by a majority vote at a public board meeting. I should abide by majority decisions of the board while retaining the right to seek changes in such decisions through ethical and constructive channels. As part of the Board of Education, I should accept the responsibility for my role in the equitable and quality education of every student in the school district. I should foster with the board extensive participation of the community, formulate goals, define outcomes, and set the course of the school district for Glen Ellyn 41. I should assist in establishing a structure and an environment designed to ensure all students have the opportunity to attain their maximum potential through a sound organizational framework. I should strive to ensure a continuous assessment of student achievement and all conditions affecting the education of our children in compliance with state law. I should serve as education's key advocate on behalf of students and our community school to advance the visions of School District Glen Ellyn 41. I should strive to work together with the district superintendent to lead the school district toward fulfilling the vision the board has created, fostering excellence for every student in the areas of academic skills, knowledge, citizenship, and personal development.
On behalf of the board administration and the District 41 community, we would like to welcome Mr. Guzman to his service on the District 41 Board of Education. That's a long oath.
It is.
It's a real test there. We'll get it. We'll get it. Very good. Welcome. Welcome. Okay, superintendent reports. Melissa.
Well, I'm happy to announce that in January we will be seating our 2 student board members. They will recite a similar oath but modified a little bit. So Ms. Abigail Herbald and Ashlyn Kuzgard are the 2 students who went through a pretty rigorous application process at Hadley. And their responses and letters of recommendation were looked at with no student names attached. So staff made a selection that was anonymous. And these 2 young ladies and their parents actually came in to meet with me today. So we had initially thought December, but agreed that January, the first January meeting, would be a great time for them to take their seat. We've already started on working some process things with them. They're very excited to join the board table, so we will be expanding our U a little bit and seating the girls at the January 13th meeting. We have a brief thankfulness video. Mike, I'm going to see if we could go out of order a little bit just so that we can bring up Jack to do the construction update, and then we can save the video for last. So I'm going to turn the floor over to Jack, and then he can stay and enjoy the video, or they can head out if they need to.
I brought John Ellyn with me today as well. So just formally, I am Jack Hayes, President of Frederick Quinn Corporation. John Ellyn is our Vice President of Construction. And if you can, would it be okay just for a minute or two, since there's some new faces on the board, if I just do a quick recap?
Always good. Sure.
Yeah? Well, to that end, John and I have been working with administration and the board since 2014 on a variety of programs. The 2 major programs initially were the 16 classroom additions, 4 schools, 4 classrooms each, to start to eliminate the portables. That program went through its evolution. We worked with Dave and his crew, and it was a tremendously successful process. The budgets held, the projects came in on time and under budget. We actually were able to build a couple more classrooms with those savings and some capital funds. And then, of course, there was the referendum, which is the program that we're here to kind of give you a wrap-up summary of tonight. So that program was passed, as you know, in 2017. So we've been working with the district since 2014 through basically that whole process, supporting as needed at the direction of the administration, at the direction of the board, to get to where we're at today. So the referendum program is essentially complete. It's all substantially complete, which were the main components were the addition to Hadley,
interior renovation to Hadley,
and renovations, bathrooms, ADA accessibility bathrooms, life safety, roofs.
all schools except Forest Glen, front entry remodeling and the security upgrades at Churchill was a big part of it also. So that, and then HVAC was a huge part of what happened at Franklin and at Hadley, also changing to the new air conditioning system.
And along the way, there were some learning resource center renovations. So it was a complex array of capital improvements, life safety work, additions, renovations, roofing. So we're very proud of the work that has been completed here in the district. It wouldn't have been possible without all of you, without the previous administrations and boards and Dave's crew, Eric's help. It's really been a very successful process, and we're very happy to be able to stand in front of you and say it's substantially complete, it's under budget, there's still some money out there that's available for future needs and capital programs. This phase of the project, since we basically John and our crew in the field and Dave and his crew, this summer came to a close as school started. And substantially complete means the work is substantially complete and we're closing the job out now. What closeout means is there's punch list. So there are still some work items that are in the process of being done, but you can use the facility for its intended purpose. So there might be some training that has to happen, some coordination of some final mechanical issues. If there's anything that Dave or his crew sees pop up like a mechanical coordination item, those are the things that we're resolving now through this closeout period. While that is going on, then we assemble all the closeout documents, which are the as-built drawings, the warranty documentation for both the 1-year warranty and the extended warranties on all the equipment, as well as operations and maintenance manuals, so that Dave's crew has a complete database and file record of everything that happened, so that if they have a question about filters, light bulbs, type of paint, type of tile, whatever it is, that they have the resources there available to them to go get that information if there's a need for it. We're not going anywhere. Once a client, always a client at Frederick Quinn Corporation. So we're here for your needs on these projects for whatever you need. There's always things that pop up in the operation of complex commercial buildings. So if there's a need, whether it's from Elia or Brian or Dave, if there's somebody that needs something, we're here for you.
Thank you.
So with regard to the budget, I believe Eric passed along a status report of the budget. And there's essentially two major components of the budget. There's the referendum projects, and then there were the assigned capital improvement programs. Both components of that program are identified in the update through the October 31st billing. And then the column called remaining committed funds that's retainage, essentially, for contractors. It's work under contract, but we don't pay them out 100% until we get all this closeout documentation, we get their warranties, we have their as-built drawings, and if there's any punch list items that need to be resolved, this is your collective hammer and through our means to make sure that they do everything down to 100%, not 96%, not 99%, but 100%. So that's what remaining committed funds means. And then the estimated dollars remaining is essentially savings. Those are dollars that we potentially anticipated spending through allowances or contingency and through successful management of the project by everybody involved. It was not necessary, so that savings that is returned or retained with the district for other capital funds. That's the 30,000 foot level. Happy to answer any questions.
Board, any questions for Dr. John?
Okay.
Wonderful.
All right. Well, thanks for having us.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Appreciate it very much.
Wonderful work.
We're here if you need us.
Thank you so much.
Alrighty. So I'm going to ask Mike, could you help us celebrate with our students?
Good night, guys.
I am thankful for my family and all the food that we have because some people aren't privileged enough to have all that stuff. So I'm really thankful for that. And also I'm thankful for my teachers because I know teaching probably isn't the easiest job.
I am grateful for my family, my cousins, and my school.
I'm thankful for my mom because she's always there for me and she always helps me out with a lot of things, and thankful for my family. I'm thankful for being here at Hadley Junior High because we have amazing teachers and we have an amazing bus driver.
I'm thankful for my family, my school, and all my teachers.
I'm thankful for family, friends, and Hadley.
I'm thankful for my family. I'm thankful for my home. I'm thankful for my education.
And I'm thankful for my teacher, Sarah Calderon. She wants us to do the right thing, and I'm thankful for that.
What I'm thankful for is the school and my family. The school because it's not like a chicken coop. Like, you're not just stuck in here for 8 hours. This is more like an opportunity to move on to better places. and I'm thankful for my family. They helped me get here, and they helped me learn and care about my dreams. And I'm thankful for Thanksgiving dinner because I get to play pond hockey with my brother when he comes back from college.
I'm thankful for my family because they're always here to cheer me up, and I'm looking forward to that Thanksgiving dinner.
I am thankful for my family and homework, and I'm thankful for Lincoln School, my teachers, my parents, and I'm thankful for my dog Harvey.
I am thankful for my family and everything that they do for me, and the school and all the teachers.
I am thankful for my family for all the things they did for me, and they always cheer me up, and they always they do kind things, like let me go to Disney World.
I'm really thankful for going to school because not a lot of people go to school, so I'm really thankful for that. And I'm also thankful for my family, for my friends.
I'm thankful for my family and Ben Franklin because it's taught me about education, history, literacy, and math.
And I'm thankful for everything at Thanksgiving, like mashed potatoes, cranberry sauce, turkey.
I am so grateful for turkey and mashed potatoes.
Pumpkin pie. We also have stuffing, water. We also have some meats and breads. I am so thankful for ham. No popcorn. No toast. We have all our family over, so we have to have a lot of food.
I'm thankful for turkey. I'm not thankful for cranberry sauce.
The first Thanksgiving lasted how many days? 3. Thanksgiving occurs on the 4th Thursday of November. Which Indian tribe told the Pilgrims how to cultivate the land? The Wampanoag? Which food items were not served at the Pilgrims' Thanksgiving dinner officially? Cranberries, corn, and mashed potatoes? Approximately how many turkeys are eaten at Thanksgiving dinner each year? I don't know, 280 million. Which southern state was the first to adopt a Thanksgiving Day in 1855? West Virginia. No, Virginia. What is a snood? The skin underneath a turkey's neck? Who was the first U.S. president to pardon a turkey? President Harry Truman, 1947. And who was the vice president at the time? Nobody, because the office was vacant at that time.
Marvelous.
I think we have corn. Yeah, I think we have some rolls. Yeah, we have whipped cream on our pumpkin pie, mashed potatoes, green beans.
Well, that's a whole lot of thankful right there. Holy
Sound effects too.
cow.
So I would like to mention a special point of thank you for an amazing group of 6th graders at Hadley. There's a relatively small group of kids who are taking it upon themselves to do a kindness initiative throughout the school. So I can't wait to see how this takes shape and what they do. And it's about treating each other well and acknowledging people who treat each other well. So very, very thankful that they got this started, and we should be hearing more from them shortly.
Lovely. Thank you. Okay, that's it. Good. So, board, are there any non-III reports from board members or any expressions of thanks or gratitude that anyone would like to share? Now is the time to briefly do that. Julie?
I attended the PTA council meeting week at some point, I don't recall the date. But a woman, and I'm sorry, I don't have her name in front of me, from Inspire Kindness was there, and she talked about some of the services and activities they offer school districts to help inspire kindness in the learning environment. Leah Harding presented about the Glen Ellyn Children's Resource Center with a lot of really positive notes about the things they're doing, keeping all their parents and families busy. Parent camp is coming February 1st from 9 to 11:15 at Lincoln School this year. And then we have some Glen Early Collaborative.
Thank you.
Jam-packed week, lots of goodness.
Yes, wonderful. Thank you. Ted.
I have a couple. I went to the Churchill PTA meeting on the 12th, so that's almost 2 weeks ago now. They held auditions for their winter drama production, Frozen Kids, which for the performance coming up, I guess in January. They approved the purchase of 6 sets of Blue STEM award books for the school. I guess historically, the Churchill PTA had this coffee cart that they did on Wednesdays for the staff, and they have now coordinated with the special ed department, who is taking it over. And so staff members can submit an order for their desired beverage, and then students work the cart on a rotating basis to fill and deliver the orders. So the PTA still helps to fund it, but now it's activity in conjunction with the special ed department. If you want the details, I've attached that to my report. Coming up, 5th grade gives back movie night December 6th, mother-son bowling December 8th, winter parties in school on the 19th and 20th. 5th grade gives back bingo night January 10th, roller skating night January 23rd, and parent social trivia night February 22nd. As you can tell, they don't have very much going on for the Churchill. So, and next date is January 14th for their next meeting. The Hadley PTA meeting, there was a vaping presentation by the DuPage County Health Department. They have theater auditions coming up December 9th, 10th, and 11th for their production of Frozen Junior. And they gave out Apple Awards for November to literacy teacher Nate Brown, who apparently is recovering from a hip replacement right now, and Principal Steve Digley for his above and beyond work directing traffic in the parking lot. I think all the construction on Glencoe. I also, unless Jay, you were going to bring this up, Wilbach and I went and saw author Robin Stevenson. There was an author talk over at Glenbard West. She was talking about her recent book, Kid Activists. Read a few parts about it. I haven't had a chance to read it myself because I've been busy all weekend. But she did read a few parts of the book where she tries to get kids interested in like the early life of activists, see what might have sparked them, or even just hey, these are people that are like me. And I thought it was a really interesting talk, particularly when the author took questions from the audience, and she started with the students. And it was a really nice question, like, what's the favorite book you wrote? What made you want to write books? How long does it take to write a book? Those kinds of things.
Too long.
Yeah. But anyway, that's
wonderful. Thank you, Ted. Others?
I just have one, and I submitted a board report on it. I'll talk briefly about it. There's the State of Illinois Department of Early Childhood Inclusion Subcommittee met last Thursday, last week on Thursday. It seems so long ago. There was a lot of things on the agenda, but one thing I just wanted to bring out at the table was the subcommittee met on Thursday, the day after there was a moratorium put on the use of these inclusive timeouts.
Right.
And one of the issues that was pertinent to the subcommittee was the reporting requirements for timeouts as defined by this moratorium for children that have use of calming herbs as part of their IEPs and what have you. So that's just something that they're going to be keeping an eye on. I think as it's written right now is still part of the reporting requirements, which honestly may not be the worst thing in the world, but that's where it stands right now. That's an issue that the subcommittee is going to be continuing, and want more information is contained in my report.
Just a reminder, this is a subcommittee, part of a larger committee that was appointed by the current governor, and Jason was asked to participate in the subcommittee on inclusion.
Yeah,
just to remind people of his involvement in that.
And it's full name, just so I always forget what it is because it's long.
It is.
It's the Inclusion Subcommittee of the Integration and Alignment Committee of the Early Learning Council of the Governor's Office of Early Childhood Development. It's kind of a cool thing. Honestly, just the scope of it is wider than I thought, but it's a neat thing.
It means a lot to have you on it, Jay. Yeah. I'm glad you're attending. Really good.
I attended the Lincoln PTA meeting, and it's a good meeting. I didn't take any notes, but I do know that their holiday store is happening December 5th, and International Night is happening December 13th, and they used the proceeds from one of their many fundraisers to purchase a sound system, so that's in process, which will be a great addition to the Lincoln school atmosphere. Certainly will help with all of their many events. So that's it for that. I also attended a Glen Ellyn Chamber of Commerce luncheon, progressive luncheon at Reserve 22, which was a really nice way for an introvert to meet 3 different tables full of people and learn about what those different organizations do in their community. So.
Thank you. Well, Guillermo, in anticipation.
We're glad you're here.
We feel likewise.
I wanted to throw out there.
Throw it out. No.
I just wanted to thank the Churchill 5th grade dual language classes for inviting my second oldest, Ethan, into the classroom to talk about the Glenbard West Spanish trip to the Galapagos and Ecuador. It was kind of fun to see him talk to a group of 2 classes, and he did it primarily all in Spanish. I was very proud of him. I want to give him a shout out. I think it was, besides knowing that the kid could speak Spanish, it was neat to see him do a question and answer with the kids in Spanish.
Wow.
So, besides being a shout out to Ethan, I think it's also a shout out to the program here and then building off it at Glenbard West. So, good job, Ethan.
Good job, Ethan. Way to go, Ethan. I just want to acknowledge that I had the pleasure of attending the GECRC Fall Festival, Fall Feast, both at Lincoln and Churchill. Lots of singing, performance, smiles, parents, kids, staff, volunteers, lots of food, an enormous amount of pie.
Good job.
Pie and pie and pie. But I do appreciate the invitation to have participated. And I would also, before we invite public participation, just offer this note of thanks also. I really did want to take a moment on behalf of the board to offer thanks to the parents and community members, teachers who attend our meetings, who speak during public participation, live stream, watch the recordings of our meetings, or communicate to us in whatever way they're most comfortable. As we make plans to be with family and friends this week, all of us sincerely appreciate the investment that you make in the well-being of the District 41 community. So thank you very much. Okay. With that, we will then move to public participation. A member of the public who wish to address the board should complete the yellow public participation form and hand it to Mrs. Moak. Speakers are asked to maintain respectful decorum and limit comments to 3 minutes or less. Is there anyone, and at 30 seconds I will ask you to start wrapping it up. Is there anyone who would like to make public comment? Erica Nelson.
Good evening, Erica Nelson, K Road in Wheaton, a community member and parent of children who graduated from District 41. Congratulations, Mr. Guzman, on your appointment to the District 41 Board of Education. Your background and your experience that was shared in the District Digest brings a new perspective to the board's governance responsibility. So welcome. And early congratulations to the 2 students who will join the board as well. It's exciting. I'm speaking this evening supporting the annual levy. I know that vote is coming up. The board has been diligent in your review of facility and programmatic needs, curricular, state, and federal mandates that support educational opportunities for all students require having a strategic view of current and particularly future needs, supporting a growing and always dynamic student population. The DuPage County Board will be taking action at tomorrow's meeting, their meeting, on the proposed budget, which includes a recommendation of a small increase in property taxes. After reviewing the reasons for the increase, I agree with their decision. In a September 25th newspaper article, Chairman Dan Cronin addressed the request, quote, stressing that the county needs to find sustainable funding as it looks to the future needs. It has been in past discussions at this board that other municipalities do not take action on their property tax levies, in fact, the county board. So it was important to see them recognizing the importance of looking more broadly and also, as he said, for sustainable funding. Boards are stewards in their elected roles. You are stewards for the current and future needs of public education in District 41, which by the nature of the term public means that every child who is registered becomes a part of your discussion and stewardship to work to meet their needs. I ask that the increased need for student and mental health supports is discussed with greater urgency, and that professional development for faculty and staff and this board in this area is also increased in alignment with the following numbers from NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness. I was at a presentation this past week on this. 1 in 6 youths aged 6 to 17 experience a mental health disorder each year. More than 51% of youth ages 6 to 17 received treatment last year in the United States. Our children and youth are included in these statistics and deserve help that also supports their ability to learn in school and lead a healthy life beyond District 41. Quickly, I want to mention December 14th is the holiday sharing drop-off to families by volunteer community elves. Churchill current parents at all our schools, community members and staff, and we welcome the board members on behalf of Community Outreach to stop by this very room for a cup of coffee and see the gift of time and treasure given by the community here. And I will be there as well. So thank you for your commitment to the District 41.
Thank you very much.
Karina Weckerly, I'm a Lincoln parent of a 2nd and a 5th grader. And today I just wanted to highlight, in the spirit of giving thanks, one of the art projects that has taken place at Lincoln School. I've been meaning to talk about this for a while, but I don't know if you are familiar with the What Lifts You projects that Kelsey Montague has done. It's basically a series of wings that the one that I'm most familiar with is in Nashville, but apparently there's one in Yorktown too. And so Ms. Catalano, Lauren Catalano, the art teacher at Lincoln, decided to turn that into a project for the whole school. And so every single student at Lincoln got to make a feather for one of the wings. And the result now hangs in the telemation room, I think is what it's called, the area by the 4th and 5th grade classrooms. And it's really cool. So you walk in, and the first thing that you see is these gigantic wings that are made up of individual feathers for every single student. So it's been a lot of fun trying to figure out, which one belongs to me. And my kids certainly had a blast making it, so I just wanted to give a shout out to Ms. Catalano for the creativity and the real involvement in trying to bring art out of the classroom and encouraging kids to explore it outside of that too. So that's it.
Thank you for bringing that to our attention. That's it? Okay. All right. We have a couple of discussion items. Melissa, will you please facilitate our conversation?
Right. So regarding the strategic plan consultant, we heard from Dr. Van Clay tonight. I had shared with the board some other consultants that I reached out to. One of my priorities in reaching out was looking for consultants who would do a process that had a broader involvement, that it was not just a board superintendent activity that we would engage in and develop a plan. So please, as you think this through, what I will do is take and answer some of these strategic charge questions and come back to you at the next board meeting, again, with a recommendation. It's on for action next time. But I can fill in some of the missing pieces that we didn't get covered. So that's kind of an update of where
Good.
we are at for developing a strategic plan. I think a big priority would be to have a process that can be complete by the end of this school year, so that we can do that tactical, get feedback all the way through the process. And then what it does is allows administration to use the summer to plan for our implementation, so that we're ready to hit the ground running next year. So that would be a desired timeline that we didn't talk so much with Dr. Van Clay about. Threat assessment consultant. As many of you are aware, we are required to have a threat assessment plan. This was kind of new on the horizon. It's way beyond just a crisis response plan. We were able to go to a session that was hosted by our attorneys and had the good fortune to hear from Dr. Nancy Zars, who is an international expert. She's a forensic psychologist in this field. Before the session was even over, we were talking about how we have to get her to come to District 41. Katie shot her an email before she even completed her session. So Dr. Zars did get back to us, and we were very impressed with what she could bring to us, so she can support our work to develop a threat assessment plan and to get our teams from every building up and running and trained. We talked about a cost-effective way so that we can pull all our teams together instead of doing 5 separate meetings a month, that we would all be in one space doing our ongoing training and PD with Dr. Zars. That seemed to be cost-effective and time-effective for everybody. An important role that she will also play with us is that if we ever have a high-level crisis situation, because we have a relationship with her, she will come to District 41 and help us assess that situation, know how to respond, and really look at it from a very highly regarded expert in her field. I'm bringing it to the board not because it needs board approval, but because I want the board to understand how serious we take this work, that if we're going to develop a plan and train our teams, we want to do it right. This is, something that you hope you have, but that you never have to use. But we want to know that we've put the work and the manpower hours into training our teams well and being able to step up and handle any kind of crisis that may happen, along with our wonderful first responders in the community. So just sharing that with the board. Can't wait for an opportunity to bring Nancy Zars out for the first time. She is an absolute no-nonsense, say it like it is, exactly the kind of person that you want to hear from when you're talking through some of these unimaginable situations that schools have to deal with. So I'm really happy that we may be asked first, because I'm not sure she has the capacity to work with many school districts. When you read her background, it's amazing. She's involved in some of the top level anti-terrorism work, threat assessment work, just really a level of expertise that, I'm shocked we were able to partner with her, and that she was excited to take us on and maybe work with us a little bit differently in terms of how you make this work with the school. So we're excited, not excited about the topic, but excited that we get to tackle this work and that we're going to do it well.
Melissa, you mentioned having Dr. Zars first come out. Do you have a rough time frame when she would in fact do that?
Really our first step was to just share with the board that this is our plan for moving forward, and then we will be coordinating dates with Nancy. And what I'm hoping we could do is maybe coordinate a time where she's here to work with our teams and can maybe stay for a board meeting or come out for a board meeting, or if time does not allow that we somehow maybe record a session of our training time with her. She just really is somebody that I think the board needs to see and hear. So we'll try to figure that out.
I see that there's a couple activities that are related to reviewing existing policies and then also developing some new ones. So will those things then go to the policy committee?
Yes. She will be able to guide us on the language so that everything is done the way it needs to be, but it won't bypass the committee. It will go through the policy committee. So that might be a mechanism to interact with her, but she can coach us on what that language needs to be. As I said, and when you hear her talk, it's things that you hope you never have to address or deal with, but if you do, you want to know that your policy aligns with everything that needs to happen and happen quickly. And as she had said, by having that relationship with us, then she is absolutely comfortable coming back and helping us if we ever were dealing with a very high level crisis situations.
And my understanding is that primarily the focus of this is on prevention.
It is about yes, so the focus is very consistent with how our first responders have trained the district, is that it's about environmental awareness, and we don't train on just one strategy, with run, hide, fight, but what she does is takes it to an interactive session with building teams where they can talk about potentially threatening situations that are either, visitors, somebody internal, somebody external. It could even be a preventative, a concern in a student that we're seeing bubble up. So she's done all of those and can guide our teams on how to do that and how to just be ready to be preventative, but also how to respond in the event that we really have a situation that rises to a higher level threat to the kids, whether it's to safety of self or others.
To that point, in Dr. Zars's proposal, she references the U.S. Secret Service National Threat Assessment Center report, actually the last 2 years, and I would recommend to the board members to take a look at that report. It is quite thorough. It does address being able to diagnose and understand what's happening in that space, in that workplace, in that school, so that you can in fact identify where the risk may be. Since there isn't a profile that's been developed on a mass shooter, it seems to me this assessment goes about as thorough in trying to identify before something happens. And it's a very impressive report. So I'm glad she's referencing it.
The Illinois PTA actually just sent it out.
Oh. Good for the Illinois PTA.
Right. And it also gets to what Erica was talking about, of the importance of being proactive and plugging gaps with the mental health supports for kids and families.
Yeah.
That's for people who think maybe we're a community that does not have those needs. That's not at all inaccurate assessment. Our families do and can easily have needs above and beyond what school is able to support at this current time. This will allow us to really take a close look at what can we be doing more within that realm of mental health and being therapeutic and responsive to kids and families. So
I actually put that on a post-it note for you for the lenses that we talked about in our strategic plan charge, that one of them should also be mental health, which is on there with SEL, but that doesn't cover mental health fully.
I think in that assessment, every shooter that was identified in a school had shown signs and had indications of depression, anxiety, loneliness, bullying. I think without exception is what the assessment found. So, well, thank you. Very good. Yeah, Julie.
Conversation that, as you guys know, I spent some time studying gun violence prevention and spent some time this weekend in discussions speaking about gun violence prevention. And while arming teachers is not an effective method of stopping a mass shooter in a school, threat assessment teams are, in fact, shown to be effective and recommended by every town for gun safety as a way for school districts to help prevent this in their schools. So, evidence-based recommendation.
Good. Very good. Okay, very good. We'll move on then to our action items, consent agenda. Are there any item board members would like to be removed from the consent agenda to be considered separately? Hearing none, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda, which includes employment recommendations, resignations, and resignation and retirement on the personnel report, the school district payment order, and FOIA report for the time period of November 6th through November 18th, 2019, the October 2019 financial reports, and regular board meeting minutes of November 11th and open and closed minutes from November 15th and 18th special board meetings. Yes, a second?
Second.
And we will then move to roll call, Ms. Moak?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Superintendent recommendations.
Right. This first one is actually an easy one. It's authorization to pay the December bills. Making this motion to approve the presented resolution will give the treasurer permission to pay bills during the week ending December 20th only, as outlined in the board report, and this is because we have one board meeting in December.
Right.
Motion.
Second? Any discussion? Roll call, Ms. Moak?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Earlier in the evening, the Glen Ellyn District 41 Board of Education held a public hearing on the proposal for an e-learning program recommended for implementation district-wide. A legal notice was published in Glen Ellyn Suburban Life on November 8, 2019. Certificates of publication will be attached to the official minutes of this meeting and submitted with the plan. The board will be taking 3 separate actions related to the e-learning plan, and I will turn to Melissa for some background.
So I apologize if this may have felt like it came up very quickly. I think school districts were all caught very off guard when ISB extended the deadline. Many of us assumed that the deadline came and went to submit an application to do e-learning. They extended the deadline to do so we had discussion here about let's try to pull together a quality application that meets the criteria. One of the things is that you have to have 30 days from when the board takes action on it where we would make the expectations clearly communicated to family and parents and staff. So that 30 days throws a little bit of an urgency into this because winter is upon us. So want to make sure that we address any questions that the board has before we move forward with this. I'll give you a little bit more background information on the work that's been done here. So we took a look at Gower's e-learning plan because Gower has been part of having an approved plan. They did a significant amount of research around their plan. DuPage has vetted their plan and has shared that as a, I don't want to say a model, but we'll refer to people who are trying to develop their plan to take a look at theirs as one of quality. So we modeled a lot of our plan off of Gower. The first step of the process is that the regional office goes through and kind of verifies all of our information to make sure that we've included everything that the state requires, and then it goes on to the state. So in addition to this 30 days of notification, we also have to keep our fingers crossed that we don't have any snow days while we're waiting to hear from the regional office and then when it goes to the state. So I want to take any questions, and then the people who have worked really hard on this are Marcy and Katie, and they can help answer anything that I'm not able to answer for you. Katie, I know one of the questions that has been asked is the differential in time required or time recommended. Could you explain kind of how the regional office suggested the different times for different age groups of learners?
So that was part of Gower's plan. To differentiate that, and when we think about preschool and kindergarten, they don't have 5-hour days, they have 2.5-hour days, and so we base that on the amount of time that they're actually in school. So that's a portion of it, and so part of the plan is determining what's appropriate for the age level of the students, and then meeting those needs. The ROE could, in fact, come back and say we want more time at this particular grade level, and then we would alter that accordingly. But based on the research and the model that ISBE was suggesting, that's where that came from.
It's also similar to what we did last year when we did the e-learning. Those times were pretty much identical to what we did last year, so it kind of is just a continuation. Right. And my understanding is that the e-learning days have to be done on the day that we're out, so they're not to be done after the fact as used to be the case, although we can grant extra time to kids who have issues accessing paper documents or technology, we have the discretion to do that. And it's the intention of e-learning is to really to carry on the current learning that's taken place. So the day is supposed to reflect the opportunities that the child missed by the fact that we didn't have school that day. So it shouldn't be something that we create that is not at all connected to what their school day is. As I said, getting the application in allows us to do this if it gets approved. It doesn't mean that we're required to implement for 3 years. It just gives us the ability to do so. If we don't submit and get a plan approved, it's not even an option.
And one option is that the ROE or the state would say, okay, so good, so far so good, but we'd like you to modify if you okay.
Yes. And we can choose to modify it as well. After the year, we can gain feedback from our families as well as our teachers, and we can make modifications. The plan is in place for 3 years, but we have the ability to modify based on what we're seeing our district needs are.
And take a look at what attendance rates look like for participation on these days, and determine whether it's an access issue, is it that people are already gone on vacation those days, or what have you. So monitoring them the same way we would monitor days at the end of the year, which honestly, it's the same thing. Vacations have already been planned, so we struggle with attendance on those days as well. And just how meaningful is instruction when it's parceled on at the end of the year really is what brought this to light in the first place, is that continuing the learning is more beneficial for kids than tacking on days that are really kind of disconnected after the year is really over with in everybody's mind.
Yeah, my questions regarding the time were about the confusing statements in the document itself that were contradictory, and I don't know if that was because that was our language or the state's language, but in one case it said the at least five clock hours, and then the very next sentence was no more than 5 hours of participation.
5 hours is the magic number.
So
we have to look at 5 hours and look at our students and where the where the developmentally appropriate level is for our kids is what we need to get to.
But I guess that's why I'm confused, because you're saying 5 hours is the magic number, but in the plan, none of our kids are getting anywhere close to the 5 hours as the target.
Because this is for K through 12. This is for the whole state, for all kids. So what we're understanding is that we can look at it for our kids and our grade levels and what we feel is appropriate for them.
Gotcha. I was not understanding that.
So a 12th grader can work far longer independently in an e-learning day than obviously a kindergarten through 5th grader. And, as I said, now that it appears that the state is supporting these on a much larger scale than before, I would expect that their forms and process, if it's consistent with most things that come out of AP, they will make some changes and tweaks and clean up. It's been a difficult process to try to navigate and maneuver, and we don't have, we'll see what we get back from the regional office if they.
Right. I mean, this, like Katie said, this could be one area that they look at and say, we need you to look at these hours and, figure out if you can add more time or what you can do. I mean, that's one of the things that they could, ask us about, because it does say 5 clock hours, but from what we understand is that you do it so it's appropriate for the age of the kids as well.
Okay.
Yeah, they could make that a little less confusing, but I appreciate the clarity.
Sure would make it easier to prepare your application, I will tell you that.
Any other questions?
So if we were to see, in comparison, that at the end of the school year, attendance rates are, I'm making up the numbers now, 80% of the kids are showing up. But on e-learning, we're getting 20% participation.
Such a huge variety would of course force us to take a look at it. But we will, as a cabinet team, be monitoring that, on the day that e-learning is happening and shortly thereafter. and, make some determinations. Are we reaching the majority of our families? If we see a big discrepancy between what our end of the year emergency days would look like, then that would obviously be reason to take a look and revisit it. But from what I'm understanding, the participation rate was pretty good when you did it initially.
Last year when we did it, to make up those days, when we did it over spring break, we had a pretty good participation rate from our students. So we anticipate it would be the same, even though it's a little different that it's actually on the day that the kids aren't here,
Yeah.
We would anticipate it might be better because they're not on vacation,
Right.
Right.
Certainly
But
got it.
we don't know till we try.
Yeah.
But what Gower reported is that their participation rate has been pretty good. It's pretty close to what their normal daily attendance is. So we're hoping that we get the same feedback and same response.
Awesome. But if ours was way off our normal daily attendance, we would just look again.
Okay, good. All right, thank you. All right, then the first action item is the approval of memorandum of understanding with AFSCME, the e-learning plan. May I have a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding between the Board of Education and the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, AFSCME Local 1334, regarding the e-learning plan for students and staff in lieu of emergency days taken in the 2019-20, 2020-21, and 2021-2020 school years. Need a motion. I need a second. Any additional discussion?
I need a correction. The last one should be 2021-2022 school year. 1920, 2021.
Oh, yes, and I just read it that. You're right. Melissa.
Motion to approve as amended.
Very good.
Second.
Any discussion on that? Okay, very good. Roll call.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And the second item, approval of memorandum of understanding with GIA, e-learning plan. May I have a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding between the Board of Education and the Glen Ellyn Education Association, IEA, NEA, regarding the e-learning plan for students and staff in lieu of emergency days taken in the 2019-2020, 2020-21, and 2021-2022 school years. Made that correction on the fly. You see that? I need a motion. Second?
Second.
I'm sorry, I should ask for a second. There you go, we got it. Any additional discussion? Roll call.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And finally, approve resolution of District 41 e-learning plan. May I have a motion to approve the e-learning program as presented and adopt the e-learning program for implementation district-wide in accordance with relevant statutes and/or regulatory actions guidance in place currently, anticipated, or put into place during implementation?
Motion.
I will. Jason, second. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Yes.
Yes. Sorry.
Yes. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the opportunity to do board governance learning together and other. And this is an opportunity for board members who spent the weekend at the III conference, if they'd like to mention the sessions that they attended. And what we've been asked to do by the superintendent is to reflect on the sessions we attended. It was very recent, and put those thoughts down in some summary written form. Send it to Melissa, where she can begin to analyze, look for some big ideas, look for some themes, and we can then have that discussion perhaps at the next board meeting, and we will therefore gain added value from our opportunities to do this collectively, as opposed to simply reporting. But I would like board members to have a chance to acknowledge which sessions they attended.
So yeah, I guess this is my moment of thanks too for the community for supporting us and going to the III conference. This is
Good investment.
It was, yeah, it was a great
Very good
investment. Time well spent. The Friday workshops were my favorite, and so I'm glad we did that as well. On Friday, we had the option to take 2 half-day workshops, and I spent the morning in an equity workshop with Bob, and then later on Saturday, I attended 2 additional sessions on equity, where in each a different school district, sort of profiled their activities and their work and their journey. Journey was the keyword of the Triple I conference. Said lots of times. And in the afternoon on Friday, I went to the Happiness Advantage workshop that Ed and Bob.
Yeah, I've got the orange
Yeah,
frog
that's right.
to prove it.
Again with Bob. Oh, and you were in the equity one? Yeah, you were in the equity. Sorry, Julie, I left you out. And then also attended on Saturday Creating and Sustaining an Education Foundation, and a session that District 204 did on strategic governance.
Very good. Wonderful. Who's next? Julie?
Friday, I read equity session, and then in the afternoon went to a school finance for board members session.
Got questions for Eric,
Board members 101 from Eric, and 101 and a half, maybe 2 at this thing. And for me, it was really helpful and really informative, and I feel like that's where I need a lot of where I need to continue my learning. So I found a lot of value in it. And then Saturday, I would honestly like to go look at my work.
You'll get a chance.
But I did go to the delegate assembly, which was a really cool experience. So here's my gratitude for letting me be a part of that. And I did get the opportunity to speak out against arming our teachers and staff, because you guys have a big passion of mine. And I mean, against is the passion, not for. So I was like one of 4 people that got to speak before somebody called the question. But I can certainly take that statement and all the
Good idea.
reflections here, and whether it should be attached to a minutes or however that must be. But that was a really cool experience. And then I went with Ted at one about like finance and your curriculum work, and they kind of made it sound like it was for board members, and we pretty quickly decided it was definitely not for board members. It was for like you guys. We were trying to.
And they didn't even attend.
We were trying to kind of like, well, how can we take this information and make it at board level? I thought it was really, really interesting. An idea, but it wasn't really for us, unfortunately.
Very good. Okay. Good.
But it was the other way around. It was how to develop habits and stuff for having point.
I was pretty late to talk about that.
We lucked into it. It was the first one we walked into on Saturday called the Art of Unemployment, and I recommend it. It has a lot of like really neat things in it about positive somebody approaching you and approaching you and one of you got my phone call last night. I went to the fire before it happened, but I'm just saying something like that. And again, we had a bunch of other conversations back and forth, like asking
Guillermo, would you like to? Yep. I would note that even before Guillermo was sworn in, he had cleared time on his schedule to commit a whole day on Saturday, very short notice. Man, that's a real commitment. And so I really appreciated the fact.
You got to give a shout out to Guillermo's wife.
Yeah, your whole family. That's a good point, Jason. Good point. Jay, how about yourself?
I attended a variety of sessions on Saturday, and I attended a lot of sessions put on by districts to listen to their experiences on the variety of topics, whether it be from communications to from equity, goal setting, what have you. So that was kind of funny to hear different of a school district's perspectives of their positive experiences, their negative experiences, the challenges that they've undertaken and faced, and how they address those, for the good or for bad. So that was good. And then my fun story of the day.
Oh, and you were looking at him for some reason. Should I back up here?
My fun story of the day. So
Kill
the
the
last
mic.
session of the day that I attended was, "Is your superintendent stressed out?" And so to begin, it was actually a really fun session. To begin the session, I texted Melissa. I said, "Melissa, I noticed you are not in the stressed out superintendent session. Is that good or bad?" She goes, "I love T41. I don't need to go to the stressed out section." I said, "Does that mean I can leave?" And she said, "Absolutely." So I took that as a good sign.
Yeah.
I took that as a good sign, given that there can be a lot of stressors that come up in this district. So, but that was actually a fun session that I enjoyed. And thankfully, the research has shown from the one piece of research that was presented in that session that board members are not the number one source of stress for superintendents. I thought that was good. So
We'll try not to change the data. Thank you, Jay.
No comment.
Let me note a number of folks have talked about the Friday workshops that I attended, but just quickly on Saturday, I attended the board monitoring plan session on how to better monitor performance, particularly given that we're talking about emerging with the new long-range plan. Also, along with Guillermo, attended the board self-evaluation. The board may recall that we had actually deferred to the spring to actually do this board self-evaluation. The board wanted to live with each other for a little bit, so that is something we can return to. And I hope this doesn't add any stress, but I attended the session on evaluating the superintendent.
I'd rather have you do it well.
Exactly right. And then finally, a session that dealt with the evolving issues in collective bargaining in public schools, wanting to stay as up to date on those issues as I could. So thank all board members for putting in the effort, for being there, for being collaborative, and we'll look forward to the assessments, your notes. As did I. Yeah, yeah. They put a lot of effort, the School Board Association, bringing in speakers, bringing in topics. There's a lot to be learned, and I'm hopeful this board will implement, integrate as we go forward. Okay. 20th time? Melissa, you were there. If there was something you'd like to.
I was. We attended, Marcy, Katie, and I attended a Women in Leadership morning, our first day there, and it's interesting because I think you have hesitations as women leaders. You don't want to walk into a session that makes it sound like there's a big difference between, or that we're saying anything poor about our male colleagues. That's not it at all. It's about that sometimes the experience is a little bit different, but that it's important that we all, really my takeaway from that was that there's a need for self-care and taking care of each other, and that if you're not your best in taking care of yourself as a leader, it's very, it's hard to do the work that you need to if you're not focusing on that. So, that was a very, very helpful session. I think, what you guys all learned is you can walk in and out of anywhere if it's not meeting your needs. I went to go to Erica's session in the morning, but I understand that she was out. But what I like about III is you can just pick yourself up and go to any other session. Or you find yourself in the elevator. I found myself in the elevator with Carmen Ayala from the state. And so, being able to have conversations with people that you run into is almost as helpful as the session. I was talking with somebody in the vendor hall who's on the planning board and said it would be great if they could have almost like a pop-up of the burning pressing things that come up, because they always do, and that you're putting all of these collective people who all have to tackle the same work and the same issues together, and how maybe we might choose to go work on, for instance, the isolated timeout, as that, bubbled up in the newspaper, and there were emergency guidelines that came out that, some of us sat and just talked about the work that we're going to have to do. Fortunately for District 12, not major changes, but for other districts, it could be. But just how do you tackle all these emergency rules coming out, and stay on top of that? So, it's just a big place to be.
Great.
What is
You said District 12?
Sorry.
Yeah, we hope for well then.
Yes. So, maybe District 41 will not have any changes to make.
Amend the record.
It still sneaks up on you from time to time. I think III is a place where you go and you run into people that you worked with. It's funny because the longer you're in this, like, my gosh, I worked with those people when I was the youngest teacher in the building, and now, as we learned the other day, I'm the oldest person on the second floor. So, those years go by really, really quickly. But it is just a huge collection of, everybody doing the same work from a different role. And I don't think the community necessarily has a sense of how many opportunities they roll into those days for everybody to just get what they need out of it. So, you can't find this anywhere else.
Near the Indiana border, right? Well, and a lot of gratitude to all the board members, because I know from my personal experience, it was a lot to fit in, particularly to this week and this time period of the month, and they were really long days, and we were doing a lot of hard thinking, so running around. So they were really spread out sessions. We kept having to cross the river. But yeah, it was a lot of work. So as much as we appreciate it, I hope that the community appreciates the work that we all put into that, because it was significant effort, time away from family.
Very good. Are there any other? Hearing no other. We will.
Yes.
We are?
Yes.
Okay. Upcoming meetings: Monday, December 9th. Regular board meeting at 7 p.m. Monday, January 13th, 2020. Regular board meeting 7 p.m. And then Monday, January 27th. Regular board meeting at 7 p.m. Are there any items board members wish to present for consideration in a future agenda? We will then adjourn to close session. May I have a motion to adjourn to closed session under section 2C5, the purchase or lease of real property for the use of the public body, including meetings held for the purpose of discussing whether a particular parcel should be acquired. Motion. Second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.